Okay, I've set up the tripod up above things now, and I'm just going to let this run while I reassemble it. I'll probably edit this highly. All right, first this power board goes back in. Okay. Three screws. I'll loosen these up with the hair. There we go. So I can push that down to get it lined up properly. Get it there. Aha, I think I got it. Okay, tighten these guys up again. You don't want to tighten those up too much. Aluminum is pretty soft. Plug that guy in. Okay. One of the things I like to do with miscellaneous screws is I just put them lightly back in wherever it is they're supposed to go. It's kind of a handy way to not lose stuff, forget where it goes, etc. All right, so now he goes back here. Power switch goes there. So we can get everybody lined up right. Let's do this one first, actually. So there's a grounding strap here for this board. He goes into the one that's closest to me. All right, I think this one went here. Oh, nope, this is the, no, this is the one. Yeah. And lined up. Oh, you hear that? That's my sweetheart watching Days of Our Lives, which is absolutely hysterical. I've been working from home since COVID, and the way the office is set up in there, I can hear it, but I can't see it. So I get to listen to this soap opera, and it's absolutely hysterical, the plot lines that they come up with. I know soaps get a real bad rap, but honestly, you gotta respect people who can put together. It's an hour long and it's every single day. So imagine what it takes to write and direct and produce a show, you know, to be able to crank out an hour's worth of finished material every single day. It's pretty darned impressive. So I got a lot of respect for the folks who can do that. And the storylines they come up with are just freaking hysterical. Okay, this guy, we're gonna put him on there, push him down onto this little connector, and then he will pop into the standoffs there. And the keyboard connector, we'll just pop that on. Yeah, this guy's a bit of a hassle. You put these connectors on, it's always good to look at both sides and make sure you're not offset by one pin. Sometimes things are keyed to prevent that, but not always. All right, so there's that. Okay, reassembling the carriage is probably the most difficult part of this whole thing. So I'm gonna try filming that. Here I have the carriage. We're going to flip this upside down like that. And you have to assemble it with the whole carriage assembly here. So you take the cables that are coming out of from the back of the typewriter, feed them up through the hole here. There's 3 of them, 2 signals, and this one kind of curious ground copper looking one. Okay, there we go. All right, then I'm just going to rest this down here, upside down like that. Then we've got the printed circuit board and these 3 parts here that are sort of the clamp that holds everything together. Okay, let's assemble the clamp here. This guy slides over the 3 cables like so. And if you look at the copper ground cable, it's got notches in it towards the end. So put those in over the notch. There we go. These guys lay flat against that. This piece, this little tiny piece, honestly, I'm not certain where it goes, but I found that putting it there works well. I think you don't want to put it between the bracket and the grounding cable because then it would insulate against the 2 of them, and obviously you don't want it insulated. Okay, then this funky looking little piece here goes with its little notch down on top of that. All right, next, take the printed circuit board. There are the connectors there, and the thing is going to plug in here. And to figure out which way it goes, just notice that all these other little connectors are going to have to plug in there. So those are going to plug in here, so the board goes like this. So what we'll do now is take these 2 signal cables, plug them in here. Okay. And then last but not least, we'll slide this down and it goes over the notch and it just clips on. That's a little easier said than done sometimes, but let's just see if we can get that in there. The key is making sure that the plastic bracket on the back is lined up properly. And then if you squeeze it, it should just squeeze right into place. All right, that metal bracket was bent a little bit, so I bent that back to get it square. And let's try this again here. There. Okay, once again, I've got it in place, and the hard part was getting the little plastic guy to not be tipped to one side or another. All right, so this is now in place. Okay, now comes a big pain in the butt, which is attaching all of these connectors into these guys. They have these little guides, and what I found is that the easiest thing is to try to feed the wire, feed that little guide into the hole where it goes like that. We've got this one in. Once that's in, you can push this guy up. A pair of tweezers really helps here because when you get to these ones towards the end, doesn't sound good. Looks okay. When you get to these ones towards the end, it starts to get pretty hard to actually feed the thing in there. And of course, it doesn't hurt. It doesn't help that they have to go in from that guide is on the back side. Okay, patience, patience. I got those connectors all in place again. Zoom in on that so you can kind of see those little guys on the bottom there. Okay, and then finally, we just have to screw that printed circuit board back down. Okay, got all those guys screwed down now. Okay, to reassemble the carriage, to put the carriage back on the assembly, where you need to get the rod, the main rod, through the holes there. And then this little U-shaped connector here, let me see if I can zoom in on that so you can see it. Right there, you see. That is what goes, that sort of just rides on this one. It goes on like that. And then we have to get the belt in place. So let's put everything down here. I'm going to put it down on the back rod there and try to move these guys out of the way. Zoom in on that again so you can kind of see a little bit better. Put this over here. So I've got the carriage down on the bottom rod. Then I'm going to have to pick this up out of the way a little bit and lower it down. And we're going to make sure that we have the belt basically in place where it belongs. You don't want to get the carriage on the rod and then discover that you've run the rod through the belt or something silly like that. Okay, then we take the rod, push this back a little bit. We get that rod and we'll run it through the carriage there. Hopefully you've oiled that rod a little bit. Then you got to take that bumper that goes on the far side of the rod and reinstall that. That just slides right on. It only goes on about 1/4 of an inch or so. And the rod goes into the hole on the left-hand side here. Can't quite see that. Let me turn that a little bit more. So you can see over here, I've got the rod. There's the bumper. There's the bumper. There's the rod, and it is into the hole there. And on the other side is the bracket. I don't know if you can quite see it, but on the other side there is a bracket that holds the rod into place. And as I mentioned earlier, you got to be a little careful because with that thing loose, that bracket could pop out. So the hard part now is getting the bracket onto the other side. Okay. Here's the bracket. It goes on this way with there's one sort of right angle piece there. If you can see that. A right angle piece there and kind of a fuzzy one there. That's the springy one. The right angle piece goes towards the front of the typewriter. It clips in right there. And then the other one, the other side goes into a hole on the assembly. Now, in order to get that in, you have to pull this up a little bit to get the to make room there. And then you just got to apply a bunch of pressure to get that on. You may need that went in by hand. Awesome. So that actually went in pretty easily. A lot of times I have to use the end of a screwdriver or something to shove in on that really hard. The main thing is just be sure to pull this rod forward. I can't tell you how many times I've done this, and I've pushed and pushed, nothing happens, and it turns out that the little mechanism there is in the way. Okay, so we've got that on now. Let's move the other bumper. The right-hand bumper, we'll push that over to the end. Make sure that one's all the way over there too. Okay, so now it's time to install and tension the belt. So here's the bracket. We're gonna push the belt in to the bracket. Remember, this bracket is still somewhat loose. Push that all the way in like that, so the belt is all the way back against the assembly. Then take the pulley and stuff that inside the belt. You may need some tweezers or something. You may need to loosen the assembly up a little bit. But you just got to get that in there. There we go. Okay. Now I've got the pulley inside there. It looks good. Let's just pull that tight a little bit. Make sure the pulley is where it needs to be. There's a couple little notches there. All right, so that side is good. Then if we come over to the other side, there it is. And we'll just take the pulley and slip it over the end there. And again, if it won't fit, just loosen up the bracket a little bit. Okay, finally, I'm going to slide the carriage over to the end here, about where it was before, and we have to tension up the pulley. We're going to tension up the bracket there. So get in there, give that a few turns. Got to go clockwise to tighten it up. The other one. Now, it's surprisingly small, the difference between a loose belt and a tight belt. This is sort of flopping around a whole lot right now. But as you might see, I don't know if you'll be able to tell, but as I tighten this up, it goes from pretty loose to pretty tight pretty quick. About 2 or 3 turns. See, that won't even touch. Push down on this, it would take a little bit of force to get that to even touch the bottom one. So I'm going to back that off a little bit. On this one, I think kind of a little bit of force in the middle of the belt to get it down to touch the bottom one. That feels pretty good and loose. Again, it just has to move. You really just need enough tension for the pulleys to be able to grab onto the belt. So I think that's pretty good now. And there you go. Now the carriage is back in the carriage assembly. These are those 2 bumpers that go here for the whole carriage assembly. All right, there's the carriage assembly. Kind of go like that because those cables generally have to go in the back. Let's see, this is all the stuff that actually goes to the carriage. Let's pull that forward. That's the rod. But otherwise, I think that's about how it goes. All right, so we'll take this bumper, put him on there, put him in place. And then take this bumper, put them on there. And we'll just kind of gently put this guy down. See if everybody looks like he's going in where he ought to go. All right, bumpers are in place. All those cables are good. Okay. Let me turn it sideways a little bit and we'll plug things in here. Okay, let's try this now. All right. This drives the carriage, and it's funny, it's actually 2 different cables. They plug in there, but they're taped together, so it's pretty straightforward. Just turn it upside down and plug that in. I don't want to bend that printed circuit board too much, so I'm holding it up. Okay. This one is the motor over here that drives the carriage left to right. He goes there. There's 2 little fins that stick down there. I believe they point down. So we'll turn him around that way and see if he goes in right. Beautiful. He plugs in there. Coming over to this side. This is the paper insert switch. Remember when you loaded the paper, you pulled this guy forward. That actually clicks a little switch that's down on the side there. And this is where the switch goes. He goes here. Same thing. All these connectors have the little 2 fins on the outside that stick down. So he goes on there. What does this guy drive? Oh, he drives the other motor, the one that makes the paper go up and down. This goes here, and as I said before, there are only 3 connectors there, even though, well, 3 pins, even though it's a 4-pin connector. So you want the blank pin is on the right-hand side from this view. You can look inside there and actually see the connectors, so it's pretty easy to get right, and that's that.